Well, hey, welcome to Let's Sit With This. I'm Kristen Calloway, a licensed therapist, and this is a place where we talk about hard things in a way that actually makes sense. More like chatting around a campfire than sitting in a therapist's office. Here we talk about getting through hard moments, healing old hurt, and growing into someone you're proud of. So pull up a chair, get comfy, and let's sit with this together. Well, hey everyone, welcome back. This year I'm doing a series called The Therapist Bookshelf, where I'm reading the books on my therapist to be read list to help me help my clients better. So this month we're reading The New Rules of Marriage by Terry Real. And I got this recommendation from my guest today, which is exactly why I wanted to bring her on. So joining me is returning guest and someone that I am lucky enough to also call a colleague and a friend. Megan Secrest is a licensed clinical social worker and EMDR certified therapist based right here in Edmond, Oklahoma, and the owner of Gift of Grit Counseling. Megan specializes in couples therapy, working with partners who love each other but have gotten stuck in the same argument, the same distance, the same feeling that never really ever changes. She's pursuing certification in Relational Life Therapy, which is Terry Real's couples model, and she offers both couples therapy and couples intensives. She brings a style that's direct and honest, but always warm. And she's actually not afraid to say the thing in the room. She also specializes in trauma, anxiety, grief, and neurodivergence, particularly supporting parents through the loss of a child. Now, I've known Megan for over 3 years. And I've watched her go from never doing couples work and always saying that she would be terrible at it because, and I'm quoting her here, I just tell them to get divorced, to seeing couples come and go from her office daily and being genuinely passionate about this model and what it does for relationships. Watching that shift has been pretty cool. So today we're going to talk about relational life therapy, dig into a funny but also insightful post that she made last year on social media, and help you walk away with some actual strategies to improve your relationship this week. Welcome back, Megan.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. It's my new hyper focus. So I'm like,
it is. I know.
It.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And I will jump on anybody's hyper focus.
Same.
Okay.
So.
Okay. So for people just meeting you, can you tell us a little bit more about what couples therapy actually looks like in your practice?
Couples therapy with me, gosh, I would say I'm pretty direct, and I think, I tend to call out behaviors I think that are what I call anti-relational, and Terry calls them that too. So we can say that I got that phrase from him, but I think that people need to be confronted about how their behavior is going to get them less of what they want. And so couples who come to see me, I think after they read about my couples approach on my website, realize okay, this is who you come to if you want a more directive style. If you want something a little less directive, I'm not a good fit for you, and that's okay. There's lots of really good clinicians out there that do different couples work than RLT. So,
RLT is different, than other models that are out there. So for listeners who haven't heard of it, honestly, it's I know it's been around for a little bit, but I don't feel like it's as mainstream as some of the other couples models. How would you describe relational life therapy in plain language?
Yeah, it's a good question. I had to think about how I would answer that. I was like, well, okay.
Or
so
how do you describe it?
Yeah, I tell people it's a 3-phase model. Phase 1 is all about data gathering of all types. So we use a lot of, and this stuff isn't going to mean anything to your clients or the people listening probably, but circular questioning to try and gather data about somebody's relational stances, what's going on. Our goal in that phase is to diagnose the dance that the couple has. Steps does partner A make that then partner B makes, right? Or what Terry calls the more partner A does something, the more partner B does their response, right? And it's a circular pattern. And I tell people that's my goal, is to get a really clear picture. What is y'all's dance? I can't help you change the dance if we don't all three agree that, yeah, that's what we do on a bad day. And then phase 2, which I think is pretty unique to RLT, is we do relational trauma work, right? The idea that people who are getting married or getting into a committed partnership are going to bring their history with them. The childhood you had wasn't perfect. I've never had a client on my couch have a perfect childhood, even when they tell you that it was. I just don't buy it.
Right. Usually the ones saying that they had a perfect childhood definitely didn't.
Yeah. They're the ones that you're like, well, who did you go to when you were sad? And they're like, I handled it myself. And I'm like,
Yes.
At five, you handled it yourself? That's not normal.
Right.
But they bring that wounding into their relationship, right? And so we have to help people change or demote those childlike parts of themselves that adapted to survive in their childhood and their family of origin, so that that part of them isn't running the show in adulthood, in their adult relationships. So phase 2 is a lot of that trauma work. And I think trauma work with your partner there can actually be really beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
Usually it brings the partner who's listening to tears, because they realize there was this hurt part of their partner that they would have never gotten access to or seen, certainly not in a fight, right? And so that's my favorite part of the work by far. And then phase 3 is skills, which I also think is a little different than other models, in that we're not teaching skills early on. In fact, the rule in RLT is I can only teach one skill before we've done phase 2 work, and it's taking a break. That's it. So that is the only skill you teach. Day 1 is, hey, when you guys are having a fight and it's getting to DEFCON level 10, you need to take a break. That's the only skill. People aren't going to use skills. The part of them that has that wounding from childhood isn't going to use the skills. It doesn't care about the skills. It cares about being safe and protected. So that's it in a nutshell, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Yeah. Okay. So let's go a little more into what RLT does or doesn't do that other couples models do or don't do, and kind of why you wanted to pick this model to pursue certification, which is, so much learning, and you've got practicums. I mean, just a lot of investment financially and time-wise and everything. But why this model?
Well, I remember, I think I got introduced to it, and I remember telling you about it, I don't know, like a couple days after I saw the first training, where I was like, yeah, I saw a video of Terry, and he basically said, we take sides in RLT. And I was like, what? Say more, Terry. Like, I want to know more about this stance. That is not common to my knowledge. Now, I don't want to speak for, I'm sure there's some small or random model out there that says we do, but RLT is different. We do take sides in terms of not people's sides, but I take the side of the partner who is exhibiting more relational behavior. So if you have an anti-relational behavior, I have to call that out. And I think that that's pretty unique to RLT. I think RLT recognizes what maybe other models maybe know is true, but don't want to say out loud, which is sometimes one partner is engaging in more anti-relational behaviors than the other.
Yes. Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, because you're an LMFT, so I assume we get the big systems overview in social work, right? Like,
yes,
we call it like micro, macro, mesos in the middle. But I suspect, given the overview they give you guys, that that's not common to any other model that you're aware of, right? Where we say one partner may be contributing to more of the problems.
Yeah, no. I recall that conversation that you and I had where you said, they take sides. And my initial response as a, licensed marital and family therapist, my whole training is working in couples and families. I thought, no, Megan, you can't do that. right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Because historically, and I don't mind being the token systemically trained therapist here, and my understanding is it was, the vast majority of the models are about, obviously you need to build equal rapport, but that you have to stay balanced, that you don't take sides in the relationship at all. You just have that very kind of distanced perspective. And that was mind blowing when he told me that. It was, first off, no, Megan, that's against the rules, like that.
Yeah.
No, you can't do that. But then you explaining, well, yeah, but not, which, I mean, it makes sense. And, I've seen it with the couples work that I've done, is that, yeah, it's not 50-50. Not everybody is impacting their relationship negatively in the exact same way at the exact same level. Now, some can be closer if you have
Right.
couples that are, I mean, either like both are super volatile, and it's, kind of crazy, or people who are fairly healthy and resourced, but their stuff is maybe making it a bit more of a 60-40. But most of the time when people come to therapy, it's not an even split. And there's a part of me that wonders how much of that we must stay balanced, we must stay even, is part of what contributes to marriage counseling having such a low success rate. I mean, it's one of the most ineffective types of therapy that we can do. Now, I think there's more that can go into it. Your chances of having somebody who's not is as invested in the process is higher. But yeah, when those patterns don't get called out, there's not much you can do with that.
Right. Well, and, I just saw a post from Terry the other day, which, the way he advertises it, and I will tell people up front, I love Terry, but he rubs people the wrong way sometimes. So, if you see some of his stuff and you're like, whoa, like I would hate it if a therapist talked to me like that. Keep in mind that among the thousands of RLT trained people out there, you don't have to be a Terry clone, right? I don't give the truth in the same way Terry might give the truth, right? Like, I don't know that,
because you have your own personality and style. Yeah,
right.
There's variation.
Yeah. There's variation, but one of the ways they advertise it is, he was like, well, I became famous because people came to me and were like, well, our marriage is at a crossroads. We need to decide if we're going to stay together. He goes, and I just decided, like, well, the rules don't seem to be working in this type of couples work. Let's break the rules and see what happens. Well, I mean, isn't that how change happens in our therapeutic world to some degree?
Absolutely.
So
yes,
I'm the model is really cool, but it is it isn't catching on as quickly, I think, as it's now. I will say on the East and the West Coast, where Terry lives half of his time in on the East Coast and half in the West Coast, it's very popular, but middle of the country, I mean, it's well, there's one other RLT certified therapist in Oklahoma.
That's right.
And that's it. So
yeah. But I also think that the fact that Terry puts skills last is also, kind of mind-blowing, but it makes so much sense. And that's where I feel like, and I don't think there's anything wrong with other models. You and I've talked about Gottman before. The Gottman method is fairly common, and I think it can be super effective for a lot of people.
Yep.
But they tend to, and I could be completely misquoting their kind of training process, but they put a lot of emphasis, it seems, on skill building first. And it just makes sense that, those younger child parts are not going to go with the skills, and that, like, this hurt is still going on. And so us using I statements when we're fighting is not going to change the fact that, I feel so hurt and betrayed by you and resentful, and, I'm passive aggressive here. And so, just getting to the dance, the more and more, it requires a lot more of the therapist, right? Where it's not, it doesn't sound like it's super manualized, whereas other models, you do this and you do this worksheet, then you do this skill and you go on. You kind of have almost the easy part at the end, and you have to jump in and go. And you have to be really emotionally and mentally ready to do that kind of work.
Yeah. I mean, phase one ends with joining through the truth, which is basically where you say, hey, this thing that you're doing isn't going to get you more of what you want. And they show lots of clips of Terry. Terry did a ton of couples work while he was teaching. So there's lots of video footage of him doing work with real couples. And I remember one where this guy, I don't remember exactly how he phrased it, but he had already listened to that both partner A and partner B talk about what problems they had, give me some specific examples. And then he says, okay, I've got good news and I've got bad news. What do you want to hear first? And the guy goes, well, I want the bad news first, which coincidentally, every single person says bad news first. I've never had someone say
right.
good news first.
Right.
And he
We'd
says,
rather be knocked down and then lifted back up.
Yeah, for sure. And he says, you're verbally abusive. He says, name calling, yelling, screaming, that's verbal abuse. And then he says, what's it like to hear me say that? And the guy goes, well, I feel bad. And he says, you know what? That's the good news. The fact that you feel bad tells me that deep down you're a good guy. And that is powerful. And I've done that work with people and seen where it's people go, and they recoil when you say words like, hey, that's verbally abusive. But gosh darn it, it is. Yelling and screaming at your partner, calling them names, humiliating them. That's abusive behavior.
Yes.
Yeah. So joining through the truth. Yeah. You kind of jump in with RLT with like a lot of very intentional work at the beginning so that skills work is relatively, like you said, I think it's relatively easy at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but it's also going to be easier for them to implement when they've done the trauma work, and to go through that when you've healed the resentment and the hurt, it's just going to be easier to do that.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And it essentially like the part that we call the adaptive child, right? The part of you that learned how to adapt to the family you grew up in. That part's always going to intervene on your behalf in a protective way. And protection and connection can't exist at the same time. I wish they could. It'd be really nice, but it's not possible. And your 14-year-old self, for example, is not well versed at using skills, or at least my 14-year-old self isn't.
Right. Mine wasn't either. Right. Yeah. The metaphor I use with clients is with that parts language more in the individual side, but that, that is a child who's in an adult situation, and we don't let children drive a bus. Because what happens if we put kids driving a bus? It's just going to go back and forth and crash into everything. We don't put children in adult situations. We have adults handle adult situations.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's a great metaphor.
Okay. So you made a post last year, I think it was back in November, that when I saw the title, it cracked me up. One, because I love like the sarcastic, satirical humor. We'll just give it away now. It was 10 fantastic ways to get less of what you want in your relationships, right? So playing on the opposite of usually what we're looking for. Where did that post come from? What was the inspiration for that?
I actually don't remember, like when you said, hey, I want to do it over this post, my first thought was, what post? I had to go look. I do recall thinking about like, man, somebody should make a list. That's how most of my ideas start. Somebody should make a list. And then I realized like, I'm the somebody, I guess, who needs to do that. But I was like, I should make a list of all the ways that I've basically, like these behaviors are not, you're not immune to them, even as a therapist, right? In your own relationship.
Oh gosh, no.
I mean, I wish. I would love if becoming a therapist made me like super skilled day one.
I know.
Life would be easy.
It'd be so much easier.
It would be so much easier. But what ended up happening, I think, is I made the list, and then I can't remember why I decided to use reverse psychology, other than I thought it would get people's attention, which it does. I mean, people were like, well, I mean, I had more messages from that post than I typically ever get. Not that I'm a big time creator, because I'm not. But yeah, I had like probably 10 or 15 people message me and go, well, it's really rude that you, like nicely, but they were like, it's rude that you called me out like that. And I was like,
listen.
If I was calling you out, I was calling me out, because I've done all these at least once in my 10-year marriage. So yeah. That's where the idea came
Yes.
from.
I love that. Oh yeah, I felt called out too. I was, "Oh, Megan, no, that's not what I was trying to do." But yes, that
Uh-huh.
these are, um, yeah, yeah. Well, so Terry, so in his book,
Mm-hmm.
The New Rules of Marriage, he talks about the 5 losing strategies. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so can you kind of give us a little bit of an overview of just about those strategies, that perspective before
Okay.
we dive into them specifically?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the 5 losing strategies are needing to be right, needing control or trying to control your partner, unbridled self-expression, retaliation, or I call it passive aggressiveness. It's the same
Mhm.
thing. And then withdrawal, which is similar to the Gottman's version of stonewalling. So same,
Mhm.
kind of the same thing there. But those are the 5 losing strategies. And it's actually interesting when you lay it out for clients and you ask them, like, what's your top 1 or 2, like on a bad day? I always use that
Mhm.
phrase, on a bad day, right? Not you today, right? Because you here in the room with me, this is a good day. It's not, but we'll
Right.
pretend like it is. What would be your top losing strategy profile? What's your losing strategy profile? And they can all name it. I mean, they
Mhm.
can very quickly go, oh yeah, I love, for me, mine would be, I like to be right and I love to control. Like those are like my 2
Mhm.
favorites.
Mhm.
And my spouse would probably agree with that. I don't know. I've never asked him, but, and actually well, if I were to name his, probably being right and control too. So like we're really
Mhm.
fun on a bad
Mhm.
day, really fun for the 2
Yeah.
of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, mhm,
Mhm. Yeah, I would say definitely for me, needing to be right and
mhm,
just, yeah, I learned that at a marriage conference. I have a really good inner lawyer. Let me tell you, I can
yeah,
prove my point to the end of time.
yeah,
And then unbridled self-expression. I can, if I
mhm,
get leading with anger, yep, those are,
mhm,
yeah,
yeah,
which, yeah, everybody, because these are protective because they
mhm,
decrease connection, right? They protect us away from
yeah,
that person that has hurt us. So everyone has the capacity to do these. Um,
mhm,
but, it's doing the opposite to create that connection. So,
yeah, mhm,
okay. Well, we're going to dive into them. So we'll talk about, the 5 categories, and I'm going to read the post titles with the
mhm.
sarcasm I assume you
Please.
implied there. Yes. You and I match on sarcastic
Yeah.
levels, so I figured.
Mhm, mhm,
Okay. So in that first one, needing to be right, and to let our audience know, I'm going to link this social media post of Megan's in the show notes so you can find
mhm.
it. We're kind of going out of order of how she has them on the post, but we're kind of going in order with the book. So,
Yeah.
needing to be right. One of the slides you had was insist on being right, especially when it doesn't matter. If you win the
Mhm.
argument but lose the relationship, that's still a win, right? And so, in RLT terms, what's actually happening underneath that? What is that part of us trying to protect?
Yeah, I was trying to think. Terry the other day said a really beautiful thing. I will say that the man definitely has the gift of gab in that, like, he's got some great one-liners.
Mm-hmm.
They even have in RLT, like, they give you a list of Terry one-liners if you want them. Because
That's
there's so
awesome.
many. The man
Yeah,
has, he's been a therapist for 40 years, so he's got plenty.
right. Yeah.
But he basically said, he goes, needing to be right is really about needing to be seen. It's not really about like
Yeah.
your partner would it be nice if our partner agreed with us 100% of the time? Actually, I don't think so. I think I would be really bored if my partner agreed with me 100% of the
Right.
time. But it's really about, do you see my perspective? Do you agree that my perspective has equal weight here?
Mm-hmm.
And if we could do that for our partner up front, saying, okay, I get where you're coming from. That makes sense to me. I see what you're saying. It instantly, I actually think that the fight about who's right and who's wrong gets so much easier. But it's about being seen. It's not about necessarily proving your case, although clients will tell you that there are certain situations where there's a right and a wrong. And I'm like, yeah, about like life and death stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, monogamy, if you guys have agreed on that, there is a right and a wrong in that case. Absolutely.
Mhm.
But like how you load the dishwasher, I mean, if you want to fight about that all night, you certainly can. I'm not going to waste my evening fighting about how to load the dishwasher. I'm going to be grateful the dishwasher's loaded.
Right. Right. And I think I've heard you say that Terry says, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
Mm-hmm.
Of
Yeah.
does it actually matter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's like, you can be right or you can be married. Pick one.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And I'm like,
Yes.
dang. Oh, but he's right. I
Right.
mean,
Mhm.
well,
Mhm.
yeah, you can be right, but you'll be alone.
Okay. One of the next ones I think that fits in here was always assume the worst. Late to dinner, probably hates you now. Trash not taken out. They obviously didn't do it because they don't love you enough to remember.
Okay.
So is
Yeah.
that the same losing strategy, the needing to be right in a different costume, or is something else going on?
I think it could be needing to be right for sure. Well, it's the assumption that my perspective is right. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Which we often do. Yeah, that's one of the skills we teach in phase 3, and I'll give it to people because you can Google it. It's like out there on the internet. But it's the feedback wheel. And one of the steps in the feedback wheel is to say, you say whatever their behavior was as if a camera recorded it, not your version of it. And then you say the story I made up about that was, or what I made up about that was, right? Taking ownership of my perspective, what I told myself about your behavior. And I have found that when I teach the feedback wheel and people use it, they're like, well, it worked. And I hate that it worked. I'm like, yeah, because it feels clunky. It has 4 steps and you're like, okay. But I think when we say, I'm going to assume ill intent of my partner, it doesn't go well. You're like gearing up for a fight before they've even walked in the door sometimes.
Right. Right. And I think it's just easier to immediately go into blaming of the you, right? All the you language and you always, you never, this is what, and to just, need to be right of our interpretation of that situation is right.
Yeah.
But it is clunky to have to own your perspective and own your side of it because you are acknowledging that you could be wrong. And that's
I don't like it. Don't like it at all. But it works. So I mean, that's really that's the hard part is you like read this book. And I've had clients who read this book and they came back, and these are clients that I was seeing individually. I was not seeing them for couples work at the time. And they're like, damn it, Megan. I hope nobody on your podcast has ever heard a bad word. Okay. Anyways, they come back after they've read it and they're like, it works. And I'm like, I know. I too found that very discouraging when I first read the book. I was like, it works. Okay, fine. I'll use your stupid feedback wheel.
Right. So, no, I have to, because I know it works. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Then you had another one that said, keep score like it's the Olympic finals. He got a night out and friends in 2021. I get 3 in 2025. She has only mowed the lawn 1 time this year. I'm not going to do my share of the household tasks and see if she notices. So how does scorekeeping connect to needing to be right?
I think it goes back to that original thing of needing to be seen, right? Like I think couples get into scorekeeping when they really feel unappreciated. Like, and I'm not saying that there are definitely partnerships that I see in the therapy room and you see them in your therapy room where it's clearly lopsided. One partner is carrying a lot more than the other. But even in couples where it's close, scorekeeping still exists. And it's usually about like, I feel unseen or I feel unappreciated, but I don't feel brave enough to come to you and say, hey, I feel unseen and unappreciated. So I'm going to scorekeep instead.
Yes. Yes. I feel like I see that scorekeeping come out the most after somebody has kids, right? Because we're keeping track of who's gotten up more times with baby, who's changed this, who's done that, who's gotten that much time away. That is I see that scorekeeping come out quite a bit. Yeah.
Well, and the best solution for it, Terry doesn't have a great solution for scorekeeping. I'll just say that up front. You can tag him and tell him that I need him to develop that. But best solution for scorekeeping was actually in another book that I think is on your list or you're about to read, which is the How to Keep House While Drowning. And she
We read
talks
that
about
back in February.
and she talks about prioritizing equal access to rest. That's a
Mm.
much better way, I think, to deal with scorekeeping than to be like, well, you did the dishes this night, so I need to do the dishes. Okay, it's really about how much rest are both of you getting. And there's 7 types of rest. So you need to be looking up this. You can Google it. There are 7 types, and your partner and you both need to be having as much as possible equal access to those types of rest.
Yeah.
So,
Yes. Yes. Okay. So if you were to sum up, so he has the 5 losing strategies, and then does he have like the alternate winning strategy?
yes. Yeah. I tell people they're basically the opposite of what, not exactly, but they're close to the opposite of what he says the losing strategies are. And I can't name them off the top of my head because by the time we get to skills work, we're not talking about the 5 winning strategies in that language. We're talking about how this skill combats that losing strategy, if that makes sense.
Yes.
But the first one is essentially letting go of the need to be right or responding generously when your partner comes to you. Both of those kind of fit in the same winning strategy. Most of us are not good at that. Responding generously is hard. But you know what? You chose to be in a committed relationship. So you by definition chose hard. You could be alone. So
True.
true. But yeah, that's the 5 winning strategies. I don't know that they use them exactly as a foil to the losing ones necessarily.
That's okay. But yeah, more the relational strategies, I guess we'll say.
Yeah.
Okay. And if I guess I'll ask it now. I could save it for the end, but you and I both know I'll probably forget it. I guess what's coming up for me as I hear about this, and this probably a little, some of this is probably a little jaded just because of the, populations of people that I tend to see. How would you help someone understand if doing this, assuming generously, and not needing to be right is healthy within their relationship, or if it would be enabling a more destructive pattern? Because I can hear in my mind some people of, well, I just need to take their perspective more. But like we've talked about before, some people have some very anti-relational strategies. So how can we help somebody differentiate that a little bit?
I think that would be a good place where when you're in therapy, your own individual therapy, your individual therapist should be helping you discern that. If they're not, I'm not going to say they're not a good therapist, but I'm not going to not say that.
We can say it. It's okay.
Yeah. I think there are some therapists who don't give clients enough information like, hey, for example, the gentleman that Terry confronted, that I mentioned, name calling, threatening behavior, yelling, screaming, those are not okay behaviors. I tell people, I don't know if it's the Gottmans that came up with the fighting fair, the 10 rules to fighting fair, but that's kind of the basis for me. So that's how I tend to introduce it to clients is like, listen, if these rules are being broken consistently by one person over the other, I don't expect you to stand there and like assume, that your partner has good intent. It might be worth saying, I'm not going to stand here while you scream at me. I love you too much to do this. So I'm going to walk away because we're devolving into something that neither of us want deep down.
Right.
So that's where I start with some people. With individual clients, I might be more directive. There's a great book called The Verbally Abusive Relationship by Patricia Evans that I recommend a lot. But that's where that data gathering phase, that first phase is really helpful, which is I'm going to ask for specific examples.
Yeah.
Not just like, hey, tell me about the problem. Well, we don't communicate enough. Okay, so when you say you don't communicate well or enough, what does that look like? Give me a specific example. Describe it to me. Okay, well, when he said this, then I said this. And then when he said that, then I did this. that gives me a lot more data. And then I turn to the partner and I go, so tell me, does that sound accurate? Do you have anything to say or respond to? So at the very least, I'd recommend if you're in couples therapy and it's not with me, I would hope your therapist is asking questions like that. So when this happened, what next? They should be investigating more, or even calling it out in the room if they see it. Hey, you're doing that thing. The more is actually happening right now. Do you guys see it? I see it. So that's how I distinguish. And it is hard. But a lot of our clients, are going to maybe take on, I find that clients that are attracted to individual therapy and or couples therapy, there's always going to be one person who's like, oh, I just need to do more. I need more skills. Sometimes you need to do less and set better boundaries.
Yep.
Sometimes you need to say, I'm not going to tolerate this behavior anymore. I'm going to hang up the phone because you're yelling and I don't like being yelled at.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I just had to, I could hear just some people going to go the wrong way with that.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So that next losing strategy, controlling your partner. And so one of the slides you had was try to control your partner's actions, thoughts, or feelings. Bonus points. Insist that you're just trying to help. So what does RLT say about why we do that?
Control, oftentimes, what the way Terry puts it, and I think the way that I like this framework, which is control's really about not having good boundaries, like internal boundaries. When I am trying to control somebody else, their behavior, their thoughts, their feelings, etc., it really speaks more to my own lack of boundaries than anything about them necessarily. And there's really direct control, right? Being very outwardly controlling, telling your partner what they can and can't do. There's also indirect control, which is more of the manipulation or coercive type behaviors underneath it. Both aren't healthy. Both lead to less of what you want. And I think of it this way, which is when you try to control your partner, you're going to get a snapback eventually, right? If you get your way, let's say on something, you control your way, the partner being controlled eventually is going to lash out. So is it really worth it to control your partner? But that's a hard one. And a lot of us grew up in families that were either really enmeshed in some way or form or had a caregiver who took control of us in one form or another. And we think that that's normal, or we're reacting to a family that had no boundaries, no safety, no predictability. So we kind of overreact and say, well, I'm going to definitely have all of those things in my own family now.
Right. So I'm curious if you can, if you have any off the top of your head, what have been some of the, behaviors or patterns that you've pointed out to clients that were actually controlling that they were shocked or surprised?
Oh gosh, let me think. Sometimes I think the direct controlling is relatively easy to point out. I've pointed out to people, hey, asking over and over and over again after somebody has said no is controlling behavior. Which oftentimes really, I don't know, it makes people upset. And I'm like, well, that's what it is, though. It is controlling to continue to ask after the answer has been no. It's kind of like when a kid asks, you tell your child no, and then they just keep out, and you're like, they're hoping I'll change my answer. Yeah.
Yes. They want to wear you down. Yeah.
So the wearing down process, I think anytime you come to your partner and say, well, this is what I think we should do, but don't give them the space to rebut or to tell you, well, this is what I think we should do. That's controlling behavior. Indirect control is oftentimes more of the surprise. Like people don't always realize that what they're doing is manipulative or controlling behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. I think to a lot of people, they would probably think that it's just being helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now Terry says that control is an illusion. Is that true?
Yeah.
He says that. What does he mean by that?
Well, I mean, it's not possible. It's like you can't really control your partner. Even people who are in like intimate partner violence are not completely controlled, right? Their thoughts are their own. Their behavior when you're not standing in the room next to them is probably their own. And that's an extreme example, of course, but it's an illusion too, because it makes you think that you're going to get what you need or want. I mean, you might for a little bit short term under duress. Is that what you really want?
Right. Yeah. Okay. The next slide you had with this was expect mind reading. Let miscommunication lead the way. Perfect your passive aggressive craft. Say, I'm fine when you clearly aren't. Slam cabinets. Give the silent treatment. Make them guess what they did wrong.
Yep. Yeah.
So how is that a form of control?
Oh, well, it's one that I'm well versed in. I think when you say you're fine and you're really not, you're hoping your partner will ask.
Yes.
It's very much, it's giving teenager vibes, right? Which is how you know it's an adaptive child part. I think a lot of us think, well, if you really loved me, you would do blank, or you would just, if I have to hear, they would just know one more time. Okay. Sure. That is maybe, yes. If you were with the perfect god or goddess that you deserve to be with, yeah, they would just know. But you're not. You're with a real human being who is also just as flawed and selfish and has as many issues as you do, if not more. So they may not know, or they may need reminding. And that's just the part of intimacy that none of us really like. Sometimes you're going to be disappointed in your relationship. And that doesn't mean that the relationship itself isn't good for you. It just means you need to learn how to tolerate disappointment.
Right. I don't even think it's sometimes, or that you are going to be disappointed in your relationship over and over and over again, in the same way that you are going to disappoint your partner over and over again.
Right.
Right. Okay. And so, what's the opposite here? What would be more relational patterns, to let go of control and still get your needs met?
Right. So it's making requests instead of complaining. So a lot of us who have problems in the relationship, complaints, the thing I tell clients to think about with complaints are past based. So you didn't unload the dishwasher. Okay, well, what's your partner supposed to do about that complaint today? They can't do anything about that. So a request would be the night before, hey, babe, I'm going up to bed. Do you mind unloading the dishwasher before you come up to bed? I'd really appreciate it. That would really help me out.
Yeah.
It's a forward or future-based type question. Here's how we work on control, though. You make the request, ideally with as much skill as possible. So, being specific, asking for what you really need, emphasizing how it would make you feel if it were granted. And then the third step is to let go of the outcome. You don't get to control whether or not your partner unloads the dishwasher. Now, you can express disappointment the next day if the dishwasher isn't loaded, ideally using the feedback wheel, if at all possible. But most of us lead from complaint and not request. Complaint isn't vulnerable. It's a very safe position to be in. Right. Requests are vulnerable because your partner could say no, or they could not do it, or they could fall short. So most of us are like, well, I'm not good. That would be risky. I don't want to do that. Yeah. But then you're not being intimate. That's not real intimacy if you aren't willing to be vulnerable in some fashion.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. The request is future oriented. And people are usually going to be more amenable to the request. And especially you saying that this would help me, or something that they can do versus just criticizing what they didn't do. That's just going to put people into a place of shame.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or move them up into grandiosity of some type, which is just shame in the reverse. But I think, a lot of us think, oh, well, if I complain, they'll be more likely to do X, Y, and Z for me. And, one of Terry's one-liners is angry complaint is not seductive. Doesn't make people want to do what you want them to do.
Right.
Requests can be seductive, not in a sexy way, but in a, hey, this would really help me out if you did this. Do you mind? I'd be much more likely to be like, yeah, I don't mind doing that. Or if you say no, and we teach this in the skills phase, saying no in a skilled way. Hey, I can't do that for you tonight because of X, Y, and Z, but I'd be happy to do blank tomorrow. Or here's how I can come through for you.
Right. Yes. Kind of negotiating either that task or speaking to the need that's behind it and addressing that. Oh, I love that. Yes. Yes.
Because a lot of us are not skilled at that either, right? Like none of us know how to say no in a way that's healthy. Or I don't know. I mean, I was in a relatively stable household growing up. I don't think I ever witnessed that type of healthy interaction of like, oh no, I can't do that for you because of whatever reason, but here's what I can do for you. Never would have happened. But you know where you see that happening? On car sales lots of all places. Like think about when you're negotiating to buy a car. If your car
First off, that just makes me anxious already.
Well, don't think too much about it, right? But just go with the metaphor. But like, think about it. If your car salesman came back and said, well, I can't do X, Y, and Z for you, are you going to be like, well, okay, it stops negotiation. But if you say, here's what I'm willing to do for you.
Yes.
So if your partner says, I want you to do A, B, and C, don't lead with, well, I'm not doing C for you. I think it's the dumbest. Okay. Why would you do that? Lead with, yes, I am totally willing to do A and B for you. C, I can't do for you, but I can do A and B.
Yes. Oh yeah, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Love that. All right. So the next one, unbridled self-expression. This one, Megan, you called me out in the post, and I just next time check with me because
I don't remember which slide it was, but
it's okay. There's two of them in there. I loved them. One of them was say whatever you're feeling in the heat of the moment because every thought deserves an audience. No filter, no repair plan.
Okay.
So some people will push back on this one. We're all about, authenticity and speaking your truth. And so what's the distinction RLT makes between being authentic and unbridled self-expression?
Yeah. Well, I think, Terry does a good job in the book. This particular section is really helpful, but he basically likens it to asking yourself first before you say anything, which is why you have to learn and deal with your adaptive child part. They're not going to pause, but adult you is capable of doing that and asking yourself, what is what I'm about to say going to feel for the person sitting across from me to hear? And if the answer is bad, you probably shouldn't say it. That's what I would call, and I do call this in my couples therapy, that's an indoor thought. That thought needs to stay indoors.
Yes.
I think a lot of us, think authenticity means that you need to express everything, and that if you're not expressing everything, then you must be suppressing. And I think that's a little too black and white. Sometimes you keep a thought indoors because you know it's hurtful. So like the example Terry uses in the book in this section is he says, how would you feel if you're out to dinner, double date with another couple, and the husband says to the wife, I've always thought you were really attractive, but did you know I actually think that your sister is even more attractive? Like that's an example, and it's an extreme example of unbridled self-expression, but that's an indoor thought that didn't need to come outdoors.
Right.
So unbridled self-expression, and he blames it on Freud, which I'm down to blame Freud any day of the week for our problems. But he was like, expression, he's like, that's Freud's idea that if you're not expressing, you're suppressing.
Right.
He was like, skilled people in marriage realize that not every single thing that we think needs to be said out loud.
Absolutely. Yes.
And
Just in the
sometimes it
world
means
in general.
in the world in general, right? Most of us need to learn to go, is that going to be a helpful thing to say? Right? That, or is it the boundaries idea of like, when you're taking in feedback from your partner, I ask myself, is it true? Is what they're saying about me true? Any part of it? Is it helpful? Right? Is it kind or respectful in the way that they're saying it? And is it necessary for me to hear? And if all three of those conditions are met, then yes, I take in the feedback. But if any one of those three is not being met, if they're saying you're always late and you're such a lazy slacker, I don't need to take that feedback in that moment. I can ask them to take a break, or I can take a break, and we can come back to it when we've both cooled down, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, that's good. Yes. Okay. The other one you had for this strategy was lead with anger. Start the convo with a complaint, or better yet, a full-on accusation. You never listen. Are you even trying? Yell first, reflect later.
Yeah.
And so what's underneath the anger that's actually trying to get through?
I think it's probably our modern day problem of thinking we need to vent, right? Like venting solves problems. And I do blame individual psychotherapy for that. Like, I think we've produced a lot of people who are like, well, my therapist says that I should express myself. Ideally, and my hope is that their therapist said within reason, or like added a caveat, but maybe not.
Right.
This idea that you need to express 100% of your thoughts in exactly however the way you want to. I mean, you can do that. The question is, are you going to be heard or received by the other person? That's always the mover for me, is in my own marriage is, if I come at it this way, will he be able to hear me? And if the answer is no, then I'm not going to even waste my time. And this doesn't mean I don't get angry and say things I don't mean sometimes, but we've gotten better and better over the years of not doing that. And it's because we both recognize kind of what Terry calls the enlightened self-interest, right? If I do this in a way that's skilled, I'm more likely to get more of what I want. So, yeah, a lot of us lead with anger, though, because we want to be seen. We want our partner to understand us. Sometimes we just want to hand our partner a vomit bag, so to speak, and be like, let me tell you how crappy you are.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And just, project all that stuff onto there. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so if we can get a little polyvagal here for a minute.
Yeah.
So when you lead with anger towards, your partner, what does that do to their nervous system before you have ever gotten to the actual issue?
Yeah. I mean, it leads to what we call like flooding, right? And the Gottmans have tons of good research. That's one of the things I'll give the Gottmans is that they are so research led that they've basically studied it all in terms of marriage and what makes relationships last. But when we come at our partner with anger, they immediately are triggered. Their nervous system immediately interprets you and your approach as threatening. And sometimes that's the goal. Unfortunately, I wish it wasn't, but I think sometimes we want our partner to know how pissed we are. And I think I would be remiss to not say that sometimes, people want your partner to be like, oh, they're serious. But if you want to be heard, flooding your partner is not going to do that. It just won't work. The nervous system turns off the ability, quite literally, to hear what the other person is saying and take it in.
Yes. Yeah. Gottman's, I know they call it DPA, the diffuse physiological arousal. I did love one thing that they had. He talked about where they would have people wear the little like pulse ox things and they would set it. He said for the average person, I think it was like 120 beats per minute. But they would have people wear the little pulse oxes in sessions, and then if their heart rate got above, and I have wanted to do that a time or two with some couples to be able to notice, hey, you're getting flooded, we need to stop, because at this point you aren't hearing a word that
Right.
is coming from your partner, and then you are probably going to, word vomit and project onto them.
Right. Well, and
Mhm.
it leads to other behaviors that drive each other crazy,
Right.
right? Like Gottman's
Right.
research shows that when what floods women is when men with stonewall. And what do men do when they're feeling criticized by their partner is they stonewall. So it's like a bad circle.
Mhm.
Women
Yes.
are like, I can see him shutting down. Oh no, all of a sudden she gets flooded.
Right.
He's already flooded because he's gotten to feeling criticized, or we could use unbridled self-expression. It's the same thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And here we go. Like now we're really having a circular conversation. I think that's
Mhm.
what leads to circular fights, if I'm being honest.
Yes. I
Hmm.
agree. I agree. Okay, so what's the alternative? How does
Mhm.
RLT teach people to express hard feelings without like blowing up the conversation?
Mhm. Depends. Like I think the feedback wheel by Janet Hurley is the best tool for
Mm,
that. But the other like technique or thing that we teach people is we ask them to essentially use, we call it the core negative image, which is this idea that when you are in a fight with your partner, sometimes we can get to that place where we're seeing our partner through that really negative lens.
yes.
Um, and the minute you're in what we call CNI or core negative image, you need to take a break, because it's not
Mm,
possible at that
mm-hmm.
point to have a productive conversation or get anything done. Or, and this is the part I like, and I don't know that it's specific to RLT. We call them, we do this exercise together, the three of us in the room, but we call them CNI busting behaviors. So essentially, if you tell your partner, I'm in CNI of you right now, your partner already knows, because you guys have identified together, hopefully with me in session, 2 or 3 things that they could do to help bust that for you in the moment.
Mm,
And so that exercise can be really powerful, but a lot of times people are like, you want to hear like what I think of my partner, like I'm like, yeah, because your partner's not going to be surprised. I've never had a couple be surprised by their partner's core negative image of them. In fact,
mm-hmm.
usually they're like, yeah, I can do those things. Yep. I can be that way.
Sure. Yeah.
So that skill alone of being able to say, oh, I'm in this negative state or view of
Mm-hmm.
you. Can you do a CNI busting behavior, or can we take a break until we're both regulated again? Either one is
Yes.
fine.
Yes. Oh man, I love that.
Mhm.
Yes, to be able to, call out for yourself what's happening, but then yes,
Mhm.
for your partner to be a part of that. Like that's just building that connection. That is, I could see that
Right.
being super powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it
Mhm.
means for a lot of couples, what they've said, I don't know that it's something they've thought about off the top, but a lot of the feedback I get is they say, well, it made me realize that they do pay attention to what I need. And I was like,
Mm,
yeah, your partner does care about you being happy. The
mhm.
wise adult part of them does. I don't think the adoptive child part, remember, doesn't care,
Nope. Doesn't care about anybody but them.
but that, and that's okay.
Mhm.
That's what
Mhm.
children are supposed to do.
Yep. Yes. Okay. The next one is retaliation.
Mm-hmm.
One of the slides you had was punish them, but from the moral high ground. Why heal when you can get even? See, now they understand how much they've hurt you because you're hurting them in a similar way.
Yeah.
To talk about that one, the punishment and the kind of taking that victim position.
Yeah. They call it offending from the victim position.
Mm,
So essentially, it's a very skewed logic, although all of us have done it at least once, where it's essentially what we're trying to express in those moments is, I think we're trying to gain empathy in a really flawed way of saying, let me show you how bad this behavior hurts.
mm-hmm.
Okay, well, if that worked, there would be no wars. We would all have happy relationships. Like that doesn't work, but we all try it at various points. Let me show you how
Right.
bad this hurts, right? If you're going to do the silent treatment, I'm going to do the silent treatment even better. Okay, well, now we're both not talking and we're angry and nothing is getting resolved. But it's a skewed way to get empathy from your partner, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
It's,
Trying to inflict harm, hoping that it creates an empathetic response. Yeah.
yeah.
It's never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other slide you had for this one was apologize only if they apologize first. And even then, make sure you apologize for their feelings, not your actions.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
sorry you feel that way. It's not an apology.
Right.
But I mean, I don't know who came up with that. I'm like, that's enough. Check. Good enough. Not an apology, not acceptable if you are trying to repair.
Right.
Now, here's the hard part. Repair does require sometimes still feeling disappointed or sad or, whatever that you're having to repair. Repair isn't perfect, but waiting for I think apologize early and often. That's a motto in our
Mhm.
relationships. We in my marriage apologize early and often. Hey, I was snappy earlier on the phone. I'm really sorry about that. Is there anything I can do to make that up to you? And usually the answer is no, because we apologize so early and so often.
Mhm.
It's not like I need to do a big giant repair gesture, but
Right.
most of us are like, well, I'm going to wait until they're sorry. Okay. Again, it's giving
Yes.
15 years old.
Mhm.
Grow up.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, just the apologizing for their feelings, not your actions. I mean, and that ties in with, that first one of needing to be right. Or
Mhm.
let's let me take this from a different perspective. What if you didn't intend to hurt them?
Mhm. Yeah. That's where I say, well, and intention's great. Impact matters more.
Mm.
Like your intentions don't override the impact of your behavior.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
you can say that, although I think it cheapens an apology. Nobody gives a rat's ass about your intentions. When you've hurt their feelings, you don't need to hear, oh, well, but let me tell you why. No, that's justifying your behavior. Just say, I can see that really hurt you. I want to understand it better. Can you help me understand? It's a great way to buy yourself time. If you don't know what else to say,
Mhm.
tell me how that hurt you. I want to understand.
Mhm.
Okay, I get what you're saying. So when I did this, that felt this way to you. You can repeat back what they're saying to you. But saying, well, let me tell you why I did what I did. I mean, again, you're in a customer service position. If your partner comes to you and says, this thing you did hurt my feelings, you are now a customer service. You're at the customer service window of your marriage or your partnership. If you called and said, hey, my toaster's broken, and they said, well, our intention was to make the toaster better with this,
Yes.
like, you'd be like, I don't care about your
Right.
intention. My toaster's broken. So
Mhm.
understanding what your partner's, the impact of your behavior on them.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And so, how do you help someone move from retaliation to repair when they feel like genuinely wronged?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, sometimes they are genuinely wronged. I mean, retaliation is like a later skill. So Terry does say that the skills the losing strategies go in order for lots of people.
Mm.
So the first three tend to be the most utilized. And then
Okay.
when those three don't work, then we move to retaliation or withdrawal. So he's like,
Mm.
4 and 5 are almost always kind of like last resort
Okay.
type
Yeah.
ones. And so I do put it to them as that. I will say, I could see why you've felt hurt for so long. And
Mhm.
so you feel justified in doing this behavior. And I'm going to tell you it's not going to get you more of what you want.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then I say, what's it like to hear me say that? And usually people go, I want the thing, whatever it is, connection, love, etc., more than I want to punish. Great. Then the part of you that wants to punish, you may have to set a limit with that part.
Mhm.
We're not going to punish this person. It's also part of just being what we call relationship integrity, which is I'm going to maintain my side of the street and keep it clean.
Mm.
No matter what my partner's behavior is, I'm not going to do the reverse to them because I'm committed to integrity
Mhm.
for myself.
Mhm.
But integrity doesn't mean being abused, doesn't mean laying down and taking it. It
Right.
just means saying, if they call me every name in the book, I'm not going to scream back at them that they're every name in the book.
Right.
I'm going to say, I'm not going to tolerate being screamed at or being name called. Come talk to me when you've cooled down.
Mm-hmm.
For example.
Yeah. Man, I love the emphasis on accountability. And I feel like that is a piece that if you can't correct that with couples, if people can't take accountability for their side of the street, you can't go anywhere. And they just want to stay locked on, well, their side and their side. I love how much emphasis he puts on personal accountability.
Right. Well, it's the only thing you can control anyways. So why are you focused on the thing you can't control?
Right. Right. Because it would be easier, Megan, if it was their problem that they had to fix.
I mean, it would be. Yeah. It'd be really nice if that was the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. And then that last one, withdrawal. And you had written, shut down, walk away, ghost from the inside of the relationship. Nothing says I care like radio silence when they need you the most. Yeah. Talk about withdrawal.
So it's very similar, I think, to stonewalling. Same perspective, which is I can't handle whatever this is, or I don't want to, I don't care. So I'm going to pull back. A lot of couples, when they get to me, are either locked in a pattern of like reactivity and then withdrawal. That tends to be a common pairing, right? The more she escalates, the more he pulls away or withdraws. And then the more he pulls or withdraws, then the more she escalates, right? The more.
Right.
But some of that is teaching the partner that if you would stop withdrawing, the escalation would come down naturally. Now, I will say that the partner who escalates oftentimes needs lots of practice. They don't typically like swoon and go, oh, now he's not withdrawing anymore. It's exactly what I wanted. They usually are like, well, we'll just see how long this lasts. Okay, well, that's not encouraging. You're going to have to work on trusting right here in this moment he's not withdrawing, and encourage that by not escalating, by not tapping your foot and crossing your arms and going, well, we'll see. But withdrawal I think it's the last resort for most people. It's the one that says, I'm totally and completely flooded. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to pull back. And you can pull back from multiple parts of your relationship. You don't have to like completely withdraw. You could withdraw from a specific aspect of the relationship, so to speak.
Yeah. Okay. And so Terry distinguishes withdrawal from responsible distance taking. What's the difference?
It's being explicit. Literally. It's the simple thing. Hey, I need to take a break. I'll be back in 20 minutes. I still love you, but I'm getting too heated. And it is saying, I'm going to take a break. Even if your partner's the one that needs to take a break, right? Because you're like, you don't say you need to take a break. I'm going to take a break. I'll be back in 20 minutes. And you do give a time frame. He gives intervals, 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. He recommends no longer than a day. A lot of us think, well, I should get to take as much time as I want to process. Right. But you've also left your partner in the lurch, and you need to come back. You don't even have to pick up the topic again. If it was a big, giant fight, it could be something as simple as you took the day and then you said, hey, I don't want to fight about that anymore tonight, but I do want to sit and snuggle with you and watch a movie together on the couch. That is you being responsible and taking distance, so you don't say things you don't mean, don't hurt your partner, but you're being explicit about that. You're stating it up front.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And so what's the path back from withdrawal? When someone has shut down, what does RLT say about how to re-engage?
Well, it's a combination of the partner who withdraws. I ask them to see if they can stay even a little bit longer. So essentially working up their tolerance to the distress of their partner. Hey, can you stay in this for 5 more minutes? Can you stay? Sometimes we have to go as low as 1 more minute. Can you stay for 1 more minute and listen? Can you repeat back what they said? Those types of skills. The other piece is essentially also prioritizing the moments where things are good, right? If you have a good day, we should talk about that in therapy. because that's why you're here, is to have more good days together. But a lot of people in couples therapy come in and they talk about, well, we had a good day the other day, but I want to talk about how we got into this fight. I amplify, and it's a skill in RLT that we as therapists use, which is amplifying success, right? I want to hear more about the good day. Tell me what made that possible. How were you guys able to do that? That's incredible. You all went from a state of not talking after a fight to you all went on a lunch date and it was great. Tell me more. So helping couples celebrate those good moments so that they have more of them. What you notice, you get more of, right?
Oh. Yeah. And so where do you recommend people start? If we'll say for individuals, if they realize that things are not going well in their relationship, where do you recommend that they start?
I actually think the book is a great read for individuals who are just regular people. And you can speak to that too, which is the book is an easy read. He also gives exercises at the end of every chapter or every section, and he labels it. If your partner's on board, here's what you do. If your partner's not on board, here's what you do. So he is giving you actual tools in the moment to do whether or not your partner wants to do the work. So The New Rules of Marriage is a great read. It's a good place to start. It's a great overview. If you're not a reader, Terry has an audio, I don't know if you call it a book or not, but called Fierce Intimacy, which is on Spotify Premium. So you can go and listen to similar skills, but in an audio format. If you're the type of person who's like, I don't want to sit and read a book, that's another great way to start.
I love that. Okay. And what about couples who feel like they are stuck and it's the same fight, they can't get past it? What should they do?
I mean, ideally I'd recommend finding an RLT therapist, but if you can't find one of those, I'd have to say that they would need a mediator of some type. If you can't, if it's a fight you've had for forever and it's not getting any better, you're probably going to need a mediator. Or it's going to be one of those things where the Gottmans label it as like a perpetual issue, right? It's your perpetual issue as a couple that you are going to fight about. And we know this, right? 69% of conflict in marriage is about perpetual issues, meaning they never get resolved. Yeah. And that, I find that statistic comforting.
Yes.
Like, oh, this probably is one of our 70%. Can't do anything about it. We'll fight about that again next month. Oh, well,
right.
Like, I don't know. So that's where I would start. Finding a mediator, finding a good couples therapist, asking around, asking individual therapists who they recommend. You can go on the RLT, the Relational Life Institute's website, and find it there. They have a whole list of people. Start there.
Yes. And so this whole conversation has been such a good reminder that the things that push people away in relationships that aren't usually coming from a bad place, right? Or a malicious place. They're coming from a hurt place. And so needing to be right, controlling, shutting down, retaliating, those aren't character flaws, but those are strategies that we all use. We can all easily fall into, but that they're losing ones.
Right.
And so, what I love, I love staffing your couples cases with you because I just love hearing how you are helping people get unstuck, or at least showing them, the path to get unstuck. Not everybody wants to do that work, but I love that RLT, it actually asks you to do something different. And that's incredibly hard, but I think that there's a lot of hope when you have someone who's going to be direct and say, hey, these are the problems that need to change.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love when we get to see couples change, and it does happen. I can't speak to the other models, but I've seen it with RLT.
Yes. Okay, now Megan, where can people find you on social media? You post a lot of stuff that is funny. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, Instagram at Gift of Grit Counseling. They can find me there, or they can find me on Facebook. Same name. It's my practice name. Those are kind of the two that I do. I don't have a TikTok. I'll never have a TikTok. So
yeah,
that's where you can find me. Mhm.
And then where can people in Oklahoma find you if they are interested in therapy with you, whether that be individual or couples?
Yeah, giftofgritcounseling.com. Find me there.
Love that. Yes. And I send all of my couples referrals to her. So if you're looking for a
I
good couples
appreciate that.
therapist, she's worth it. So
I appreciate
Megan, thank you so much
Thank you.
for coming back. Yes, and
Mhm.
getting to talk about this. So I'm glad that you put that post out last year and that it led us here.
Yeah, me too.
And if this conversation has you curious about the book itself, stay tuned. My solo episode on the new rules of marriage is coming up next, and I'll be sharing my own thoughts on what stood out to me as a therapist and also as a person in a relationship. If this episode was useful to you, please share it with someone who needs it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss anything that's coming next. That helps out small shows like mine to reach more people in the audience. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'll save you a seat for next time.